Welcome to the Andy Staples Show, which is very quickly becoming a gambling show. I mean, I guess Ari was here, so it kind of already was, but jo- jo- joined by Ari and Scott Doctorman to talk about two more gambling scandals. We had one last week, and then two popped on Monday. Scott, you're perfectly placed to talk about this because we heard about the Iowa one over the weekend, and then there was some clarity on Monday. The Iowa State one also pops on Monday. So what are we dealing with here?
Well, we're dealing with athletes in 8 different sports, totaling 41 in the state of Iowa, 15 at Iowa State, 26 at Iowa, that bet at some point. So Iowa was notified last week, May 2nd, about some of these, the potential criminal conduct related to sports wagering and possible NCAA violations. And so from there, the Iowa Racing and Gaming Commission has been involved. Law enforcement notified Iowa on the 3rd. The 4th, they received the list of the individuals' names. The 5th, they banned those athletes from competition, including some baseball players. Their number one hitter, who had started every game, magically did not play in their series against Ohio State over the weekend, and among a few other players. So, overall, the University of Iowa received information on 111 individuals, 26 from baseball, football, men's basketball, men's track and field, and wrestling, and one full-time department employee who I can only imagine will not be, if they're at will, they are at won't pretty quickly. Yeah. And if they are contracted, they'll probably be non-contracted in a minute.
It's so you said potential criminal violations. Do we know what that is? Do we know specifically what they were looking for? Or?
I'm still trying to gather that kind of information, so I don't know, but that's something that the university itself released today, potential criminal conduct. Now, is that because of insider information? I don't know what classifies that. We're dealing with college athletes. Would that include, somebody's significant other who's in another sport that knows something about a team and then betting on it? I think some of this is going to come out. Obviously, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
But there have been, again, the speculation has been so rampant. It's been hard to kind of gather what might be real and what might not be. And I think a lot of the athletes bet on the Iowa South Carolina Final Four game. That's at least
the women's Final Four, where Iowa upset South Carolina, and I believe one of the three of us had a bad night that night. I think.
Wish I had some inside information in that game, because my outside information led me to one of the most painful evenings of my life. So I have this is my take on this whole scenario, guys. Okay, and then I'll let you guys riff off of it. But if they're betting on the NBA or the NFL, I don't care, and I don't know why the word scandal is attached to it. But at the same time, there are signs all over every building I've ever walked into. And everybody is keenly aware that they should not be doing this. So as dumb as I think it is to get fired up about somebody betting on the NBA, I also don't feel bad for the people getting in trouble with it, because it's so simple to not do it if you know, and they all know not to do it. So, I don't know how to reconcile both of those thoughts, because stupid rule is not the issue. Sometimes it's, are you able to follow the stupid rule? And if you're not, then there's consequences for it. Now, whatever criminal activity you were discussing took place, obviously that's a different ball game than what I'm talking about. But this, Andy, you said it good before the show, and I'll just repeat you. But if gambling is going to be legalized, and this is going to be a mainstream thing for everybody to participate in, then I agree with you in the sense that there needs to be more legitimate and rules
common
that
sense rules, yes,
that we can follow. Of, if you are a student athlete at the University of Iowa, you cannot bet on anything, and if that's the rule right now, and if that remains the rule, then whatever, you have to follow it while you're an athlete.
I think that probably goes a little too far. I would not have a problem with college athletes gambling on the NBA, on the NFL, on a professional sport, just not on. You can make the rules that just don't bet on college sports, and
Mhm.
all of that stuff can be tracked.
Mhm.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
they have apps and services that the schools can subscribe to, and as probably a condition of your scholarship, the players probably have to submit to having their information logged in here. This would happen to the NFL guys.
Mhm.
All of the
Jameson Williams.
NFL players, their stuff is tracked. So if they place a bet, it knows. Like
What did Jameson Williams bet on? Didn't he bet on the NBA?
Yeah, but he did it from the actual location.
team facility?
Yeah, and you're not allowed to do
Yeah.
it from the team facility. And
Yeah.
Iowa State also was part of this. I didn't want to make it an all Iowa one where they had 15 from
Mhm.
football, wrestling, and track as well. So yeah, this is this is pretty heavy because Iowa legalized sports gambling, was the 11th state to do it back in May of 2019. You could do it from your phone, you could do it in person. They have sports books, and there's no you can even do it on the local teams. Whereas in Illinois, you cannot bet on Illinois college teams. You can't bet on Northwestern. You can't bet on the Illini or my alma mater, Western Illinois. You just can't do it from the state borders.
The Leathernecks, you can't bet on the Leathernecks.
You know what? I bet on them to win a war. I don't know about a game, but
The question that I have too is just like gambling is, we think placing a bet on a sporting event, win or lose, under one of those two things.
Mhm.
But it's like, what about fantasy football?
Yeah,
Right. NCAA tournament pool.
Well,
What about
all
squares?
all
Yeah,
gambling.
like what about all the stuff that everybody does?
yeah.
And it's like, so you have to draw a line in the sand of like, this is what's permitted and this is what's not permitted, and then you have to follow those guidelines. But if people want to lose their money betting on the NBA, then that's their prerogative. Nobody wins betting on the NBA.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Artie. Public service announcement.
The biggest problem though are prop bets. I mean, that's what this could all be. And if you know it, and it's like, dude, you're going to miss X number of free throws, or, hey, I'm taking Iowa and, 60% completion percentage of the under or something, whatever the prop bets might be, certainly under 25 points a game.
There's an Iowa offense joke in there.
Yeah.
Just
Am I allowed to make the Iowa joke?
You could probably make it. I don't think Scott should make it.
No.
Yeah. I just, you cannot bet unders in the state of Iowa. Let's just put it that way. And I'll let the listeners put two and two together on that one.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's very hard for me to do a lot of hand wringing yet, because we don't yet know specifically what we're talking about here. We know that people have been suspended, people have been investigated. We saw at Alabama, Brad Bohannon, the baseball coach, got fired over this. He was connected to a suspicious set of bets placed in Ohio. But yeah, I want to know more about this. Like the Bohannon thing, I want to know what they found.
Mhm.
And I realize that these are employment records and that sort of thing, but I think it's in the SEC's best interest to tell everybody what they found. And it's in the University of Alabama's best interest to tell everybody what they found. Ditto for this situation with Iowa and Iowa State.
No question. I mean, I think this is a teachable moment if it's, let's say, semi-innocent. Maybe it was betting on the Final Four game. But you're going to get somewhat suspended for it. I mean, at some point, and I think, whether it's football and I don't know what Iowa State would have bet on, but they don't have a baseball team, so it's not that. But I do think that this is something that is a teachable moment for everybody involved, because if they all get suspended for even a couple of games, I mean, again, they had a pretty pivotal weekend series against Ohio State, and Iowa's a really good team, and their best hitter did not play, and that said a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa's an NCAA tournament team, just like Alabama is.
Yeah,
and I mean that is definitely hard to deal with when you just having guys pull. So yeah, this is something I think maybe this offseason, you always have this emergency NCAA legislation. Maybe the schools need to get together and come up with kind of a blanket policy. And obviously conferences may want to do it differently. Schools may want to do it differently, be more strict than others, but probably have kind of a baseline policy on this. I think I really think you could just make it common sense. Do not gamble on college athletics. If you're a college athlete or an employee of a college athletic department, that feels like a fairly common sense thing that does not deprive you of, if that's how you get
It's
your
so
cookies,
funny to
betting
me,
the
guys,
ponies or whatever.
because I went to college in like the party poker era.
Mhm.
So like and I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy it so much, because when I was 18 and 17, that was the height of poker's popularity.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Chris Moneymaker was winning the World Series and all that stuff. And then that bled into, because a lot of the poker sites had the sportsbook.coms, and it starts off when you're a freshman at $5, $10, $20 a game. And like that, like all my friends and I kind of grew up in that era. But like, I also, for as much as I'm like thinking that like making gambling look like you're a criminal
Mhm.
is a bad thing, I don't think it's unreasonable to prohibit people from gambling at all if they're engaged in being, like, if you're a member of a college team that can be bet on, like, you should not bet on anything. If that's the thing, then that's the thing, and I would understand that. The thing I do, and this is already in place, but they already know they're not allowed to, but like
Yeah.
a renewed, because now sports gambling is more mainstream than it's ever been in the history of our country, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
now that this is
Right.
the case, like Andy said, and I think you said too, Scott, create an exact guideline handbook of what you are and are not permitted, have seminars about them the same way you do about every other issue when you're on a college football team or any other college team. And if you break that rule, you're out. Like that
Yeah.
to me seems very reasonable.
And
You know-
and I think an outright ban is too much. I think it's
Mhm.
you can do this by just saying, just don't bet on college sports, because that seems like the most logical thing. That prohibits you from gambling on your own games. That prohibits you from gambling on your
Your
buddies'
friends'
games,
Yeah.
and prohibits you from gambling on your girlfriend's game. Like, you know,
But I
'cause
also think too, like
athletes are
the
the same.
NFL for college football, though,
Yeah.
I mean, like there's a lot of people who
There's some
know
cross.
Bryce Young on Alabama's campus. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so like I do think there is like a gray area there of like, if you want to
Right.
bet on the NFL, that's fine, but it's not like, Bryce Young's 6 best friends on the face of the earth probably are either in the NFL right now or play on Alabama's team.
Yeah.
So like I almost would be like, not even the same sport, I think would be reasonable.
I do think there's a lot of hypocrisy here too. I mean, when you look at Iowa, when it renovated and built its new luxury suites in 2006, one of the people who bought it was from Riverside Gambling Establishment, and back then they couldn't allow it to be broadcast, so they used it as like Riverside Golf Resort, and it's but it was it was a casino, and now it's got a sports book attached to it, and it's got a luxury suite, and it's a big donor and everything. So I agree with you though when you start to talk about maybe it's not anything college connected and your sport. But I also, when you talk about like NCAA tournament pools and fantasy football or fantasy sports, that's also kind of tough because I'm like, that's just a lot of times just buddies getting together and doing something.
Yeah.
Because even dare I say, even with like basketball players with the NCAA tournament, you don't really want them to, but is there really any harm if they each are throwing in $5 for a pool? But I guess Rick Neuheisel knew that it didn't work out for him.
Yeah. Yeah. That when it's your own sport, I think you just have to say no and don't do it. And again, like Ari said, the poster is pretty clear. We've all seen that poster in every locker room and every team facility. It says don't bet on it. They haven't changed the slogan since the 80s.
Yeah.